Okay, and now we move to our feature, Curt Curtin, who has had considerable impact on poetry in the Worcester region for almost 9 decades. He will be, I believe, speaking one poem, and then I think Dee is going to read a few of his other poems. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Dee, and I'll let you take it from there.
Stand right closer, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Welcome, Curt.
Yes, I'm introducing a book I've just finished a while back, and it's as you can see here, it's for art's sake, and it's about each of the arts in America, and so it follows through a number of areas. But what I've chosen out of it is to do something that is probably quite a change from some of what I have been listening to, and it is a love poem, and I'll just excuse me. I dropped a page. Okay, the book opens with a love poem, and so it really does a lot of other things, but this is I enjoy it very much because it just carries us through a simple relationship to our own lives with men and women. So it's Melody and Cello, a Valentine. That's what it's called. And it sounds very simple, I know. But when first they met, he spoke the words, melody, cello, those to be their names. She heard and knew her touch of understanding hands. So slowly learned composure in their sweet embrace. Together played etudes, syllables too brief for speech. One thing I should note is that I'm legally blind, and so I have to be a little slow in reading some of this.
Okay.
Is improvised on colors and in illuminated books or on the lambent surfaces of grace. At times, they played in flowered skies that Chagall designed. Love left base by stirring settings and whispering antiphonies. Other times, they learn to understand and know the prosody of grief, deep with turning beneath, concerning each to each. And the light here is tough. And shared the longing ache of imperfection. When they played for others, measures of their gains in so many of the mornings inexpressibly subdued. Thank you. I've had a terrible time because of my eyesight, but But I wanted to introduce here, I know what other pieces you've introduced have a lot of depth and interest. And I thought a moment about simply, love and its connections.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Curt, for working through that. I know it was difficult to see. And now we'll turn it over to Dee, who will
Yes.
read Curt's poems.
Well, actually, some of you who know Curt know he has a wonderful reading voice, and you didn't get to really get the feel of it in that poem because it was so hard. He had 100-point font, and it was still difficult to read, but he did want to try the first one. But thanks to our friend and colleague, Susan Roney O'Brien, a couple of months ago, we had done some recordings of Curt reading. And so I'm going to play a couple recordings, and then I'm going to read one, and then we'll do another one or two, and then I'll read the final one. So you get to hear most of it in Curt's voice. So let's see. So the first one, can I see your book, Curt? If you've seen the book, and we do have a website now called curtcurtinpoet.com. If you want to see the picture on the cover of the book is by a friend of ours who's a wonderful artist out in Westfield, Mass. And it's a figure who's kind of rising up, wrapped in a bit of a shroud. And the figure is kind of a combination horse and female character. And so the first poem we wanted to have you hear on his recording is called The Studio. And the studio is dedicated to Marge Leon. It's about her art studio. Now I'm going to switch over so you see Curt's face while the recording is playing.
Okay. Funny.
The studio. In galleries, her art in graceful space relates authentic strangeness, ways of making reason smile faced by a mystery. Nibbling crackers and brie, the people say, where does she get ideas like that? Above exhausted backstreet shops, generous windows face a cold north light. Harmony swirls and stomps around the room, drawing chaos into the game, like God's own choice. Not something out of nothing, only the raw things, heartless, ready to be shaped. Slowly turn within collage of broken shapes. Statuettes half awake, paint and paste, electric drill, broad table filled with inked or molded things. A quick drawing of unfinished men, scraps of anonymity in boxes underneath, artifacts just suggesting plausibility. She's in a lonely place, hovering just above ground, trying to reach down where artifact and insight meet and reach the streets below.
So the next poem is about an experience that meant a great deal to Curt. And those of you who've been to the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum probably know the history of there having been a pretty major art theft there 30 years ago. And I'm going to try to show you just roughly a painting that's referenced in this poem. It's by Rembrandt. It's called Storm on the Sea of Galilee, or sometimes Christ on the Sea of Galilee, depending on where it's mentioned. You can't see that one in the museum anymore because it was among the stolen ones. And so if you go there, what you see is a frame with the background of the wallpaper. So this is Abduction at the Gardner.
Years ago, when I was 15, I went to the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston, Massachusetts. One of the special delights that I had was with a particular painting, The Fisherman on the Sea of Galilee. It was a wonderful, bright painting, and it was also about fishermen on the sea. And I am a Boston-born person who also enjoyed the ocean. That was when I was 15, and later, after hearing about a theft at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, I went back and was very saddened to see that Fishermen on the Sea of Galilee was one of several that had been stolen. They were ripped out of their frames or cut out of their frames. Very rough work, and it has not been solved even yet. So we have no idea where those paintings are. Abduction at the Gardner.
I'm going to stop for 1 second so that was Curt's introduction, but so that you can note that there's a line in here that you may remember from Robert Browning's My Last Duchess. And that'll be, since none puts back the curtain, I have drawn for her but I. It's kind of a nice reference in the poem.
I miss the fisherman most, the ghost of peace, beneath the heave of boat and wave, on the wild sea of Galilee. It got to my teenage blood years ago, how they hung on the lines in the grip of fear, where sails whipped in wild air, how each detail rang so true to a boy who loved the sea. Perhaps if they stole just one, I could believe romantically that someone loved it so he made a crypt, climate controlled, and lit much better than Gardner's wall. There he sits alone, since none puts by the curtain, I have drawn for you but I. His selfish satisfaction was a little redeemed. But they stole more, Rembrandt and Vermeer, and other precious work, thugs who cut them from their frames. They only saw expensive rags a buyer might reclaim for something under market. Ignorance of awe wed to sordid souls. I saw blank frames and will not look again. Galileo still delights, Della too, hidden in the murky halls. Raphael and all the grilled and dark-beamed sights, the chill of wonder in sweet passage all around the atrium. Someday, before my sight is claimed by the thief time sends at last, I hope to stand by Galilee, rescued and returned. In that tumultuous frame, I will again see peace beneath the heat waves.
The next one is called Shaping, and you'll notice a reference here to Michelangelo's David. So think of that statue and is holding the sling as you're hearing this poem read.
Shaping. Maybe in your artist's mind, you have seen a stone with a boy inside, daring you to cut away what twisted grain the heat and cooling made, as Michelangelo saw David and brought him into view. But have you seen a child with a stone inside, annealed in the usual way, slow cooling after shapes are formed in heat? And when the burden cools, unseen in that dark cavity, it sits in a loaded sling.
The next one, I'm first going to read Curt's choice of another poet because it then reflects on the poem that follows. And some of you will know this poem. It won the first Frank O'Hara Prize back in, I forget which year now. So I'm going to read Auden's Musée des Beaux-Arts, and it will be followed by Curt's poem after Auden's Musée des Beaux-Arts. And if you know Bruegel's painting of Icarus, Auden is using that in his poem. About suffering, they were never wrong, the old masters. How well they understood its human position, how it takes place while someone else is eating or opening a window or just walking dully along. How, when the aged are reverently, passionately waiting for the miraculous birth, there always must be children who did not especially want it to happen, skating on a pond at the edge of the wood. They never forgot that even the dreadful martyrdom must run its course, anyhow, in a corner. Some untied must go on with their doggy life, and the tortured horse scratches its innocent behind on a tree. In Bruegel's Icarus, for instance, how everything turns away, quite leisurely, from the disaster. The plowman may have heard the splash, the forsaken cry, but for him it was not an important failure. The sun shone as it had on the white legs disappearing into the green water. And the expensive, delicate ship that must have seen something amazing, a boy falling out of the sky, had somewhere else to get to and sailed calmly on. And this is Curt's poem after Auden's Musée des Beaux-Arts.
After Auden's Musée des Beaux-Arts. The masters, passionate for war, were sure. The many cheered them on, though mothers wept to see the young ones go. One sunny day, by consequence of Sunni fury, Private Icarus is blown skyward by a bomb. His daring known, his death a failed adventure. Inarticulate, amazed and gaping faces, see those shreds of color arc in a searing sky, while over the span of sand and sea, gannets called more plaintively. In Maine, his father plowed a heavy snow, senses bedded in dense white pain. Neighbors in their pickups passed him by, and each one lightly touched the horn. About suffering, they were never wrong.
In the final poem, Curt wanted to have me read, probably ironically. And those of you who are fans of Stanley Kunitz would want to know that this was something he wrote after reading Kunitz's The Sea That Has No Ending. It's called November of an Old Professor. Through faded lens, old eyes retrieve Germanic vines that weave like hell's dark light in lines of paradise lost. But where did all those acolytes go, whose eyes refreshed a wry, contemplative mind? He still sees young lights gleaming brown or blue to green upon the vine. Why then does he desire to resurrect those weathered vines, to ply them with his humbler fire, to teach the golden issue of the wine, aged to its finest hour with a weathered cask bound in weathered brass? Seed to life conceiving, life to life redeeming.
Yeah.
Thank you, and thank Roger for orchestrating. And I wanted to also thank a couple of my siblings you may have noticed on the line, a couple of O'Connors, Patricia and Gary, who joined. So nice to have them as well. Thank you. Kurt, do you want to say anything in final?
No, this all said. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Dee. Thank you, Curt. Thank you, all the readers. Um, Before we go, does anybody have a particular question for Curt or anything they'd like to, if anyone has a question? Well, I want to thank you all for participating in this first Zoom reading. It is recorded, although I'm not quite sure how we go getting back. I may let Bob figure how we get it from the cloud, but I do know that in a test record, it was just a simple matter of clicking on Zoom somewhere and the test came back. So I think this is available again for use in other venues. And I hope you will all join us on the 25th for a bilingual reading with Juan Matos and Rina Espalier. So thank you all, and we'll see you around. Bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Roger.
Thanks, Roger.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. That was great.
It was great.